The Coho salmon is one of the most emblematic fish of the northern Pacific Ocean and can be found from central California to Alaska. Salmonids are euryhaline anadromous fish, which means they spend time in both freshwater and saltwater systems and use tributaries to breed. A young salmon starts its life in a river or stream, feeding on plankton and insects, then makes its way out to the open ocean to eat herring, krill, and other prey items. After a year and a half of this lifestyle, they make their way back to the same rivers they were born in to spawn and begin the cycle once more. Salmon are valuable to inland and oceanic systems, as well as their own economy. Yet in the last century, the Coho has seen a sharp decline in numbers, with less than 100 individuals returning to local Santa Cruz rivers, as opposed to the thousands before human impacts. To better understand where and why this is happening, we enlisted the expertise of Dr. Eric Palkovacs.
My name is Eric Palkovacs. I'm a professor of ecology and evolutionary biology here at UC Santa Cruz. Scott Creek is the last remaining Coho salmon river in Santa Cruz County, so it's the southernmost spawning population for Coho salmon in the entire range in North America. There used to be Coho salmon in many of the other rivers in this area, but now the distribution has gotten reduced to just Scott Creek. So we're focusing on trying to understand what's happening with the Scott Creek population and try to restore that population, but also try to reestablish Coho salmon in the other rivers in this area. Habitat loss is probably the biggest threat, right? So dams, loss of sort of the rearing habitat in floodplains is a big issue. The simplification of habitat, so people removed a lot of wood from streams, and like wood in streams is a natural source of fish habitat. We're interested now in fire because we just had the big CZU fire, and that the Scott Creek watershed was right at the epicenter of the CZU fire. It really impacted the hatchery. So there's a conservation hatchery on Scott Creek, which is basically the kind of like the last kind of support system for this population, and that hatchery didn't burn down, but it was severely impacted by the fire, so that's a major conservation concern.
With a little help from Eric, we were able to arrange a tour with Ben Harris at the Monterey Bay Salmon and Trout Project's hatchery. Here we were able to learn how such a facility works and the specific measures that this hatchery is taking to make sure that healthy, genetically diverse salmon are entering the wild. They are able to maintain genetic diversity in a very systematic way, which I will now let Ben explain.
These green troughs right here are actually where we'll take the fish from there, the males and females ready to spawn, and we'll separate them out according to a genetic broodstock matrix that we have from NOAA. So kind of one-to-one pairing is really important. We look at each fish, each family group it came from, trying to make it as diverse as possible.
We'll now bring back Eric to explain why this is so crucial for the Coho.
With a really small population, of course, you have to worry about genetic diversity being low. You have to worry about things like inbreeding depression, like if there are closely related individuals spawning with one another, that's a problem. So we genotype every fish that we include in the hatchery program to make sure that we maximize genetic diversity and we reduce as much as possible inbreeding.
According to Ben, the hatchery can rear as many as 30,000 of these genetically diverse fish in a good year, but has not really been able to in the last couple of years since the fire. But this year, they'll be releasing around 7,500 fish, and since much of the hatchery has been rebuilt, they soon will be back at that 30,000 to 40,000 range. And the main building is where they keep their salmon eggs and fry, which they raise after the spawning season. Fish are moved to different areas as they increase in size and are eventually released into the creek as smolt, where they will quickly make their way into the ocean. Due to how complicated the issue with Coho salmon really is, you may be wondering, how can the average person get involved? Well, to quote Eric, some ways you can get involved in the plight of the Coho salmon would include volunteering for the Monterey Bay Salmon and Trout Project or supplying them with donations. Another good way would be to get involved with local groups like the Coastal Watershed Council, which is great for education programs, and you could get involved in water conservation use, as well as just being mindful of your own water use. There is hope for the Coho salmon within the Bay Area. In just the last couple of years, there has been an uptake in population numbers, as well as data suggesting that the most genetically diverse salmon are the ones that are returning the most. This implies that restorative hatchery efforts have been effective, and hopefully will continue to do so into the future.